بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين أما بعد فإنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. As we draw our attention to Karbala, we find it is late in the afternoon. As we go to the tent of Al-Hussein, we find at a distance an army awaiting Al-Hussein. When we go near the tent of Hussein, we find Hussein sitting down with his head lowered in his lap. When we look into his lap, we find a little baby. Hussein looks at this child and he calls out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Hussein buries this baby, stands, dusts his garment, goes to the tent of Abbas, lifts the cloth, looks inside it, and calls out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I will say, oh Hussein, do you look for your Abbas? He is no longer. He goes to the tent of Habib, looks inside it, and cries out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliyyil azim. He comes to Zainab. He says, oh sister, bring me the garments that our mother had given to you. She is shaken. She brings the garments. Hussein starts tearing them in pieces. Oh brother, what is this that you do? Oh sister, they will not spare any of my garments. I do not wish this to be taken from my body and for my body to be left barren. Oh brother, have you resolved to go and meet with Allah? He said, oh Zainab, what can I do? I have no Abbas, no Akbar. Come, let us take news of my ailing son. Zainab accompanies Hussein. When Hussein comes, Sajjad is unconscious. Hussein looks on to Sajjad, and as tears fall from the eyes of Hussein upon the cheeks of Sajjad, he awakens. He looks at Hussein, unable to recognize him, focuses his glances on Hussein, then says, oh aunt, it is my father. Sit behind me and support so that I may talk with him. Zainab sits. Sajjad reclines against Zainab. He looks at her, Hussein. Oh father, what news do you bring of what has happened between us and these godless people? Hussein states, oh child, I come to bid you farewell. When Hussein says this, Sajjad says, Ya abati, ayna ammi al-Abbas? Oh father, where is my uncle Abbas? When he asks about Abbas, Zainab looks deep into the eyes of Hussein. How may he respond to this question? He said, Qad qutil, he has been killed. When he said he has been killed, Sajjad cries to no end, loses consciousness, regains his consciousness and says, Aina akhi Aliyun al-Akbar, qad qutil. Aina Habib ibn Mawahir, qad qutil. Aina Muslim ibn Awsaja, qad qutil. Oh child, all of them have been killed. I am the only one left. He says, oh aunt, bring me my stick and my sword. Hussein says, oh child, what is it that you wish to do? Oh father, I cannot bear this destitution. Allow me to give my life for you. He embraces Sajjad and says, O women of Prophet, bear witness. I leave behind the purest of my progeny. He says, O Sajjad, if you were to die, who will take back my orphans and the daughters of Muhammad back to Medina? O child, you must live. He looks at Sajjad. He says, Sajjad, when you go back to Medina and when you meet my lovers, tell them your Imam made mention of you upon his last breath. And he said to you that, O people, when you hear of a destitute and a martyr, weep for your Hussein. When you hear about thirst and thirsty people, think of how your Hussein sought water for his little baby. He bids Sajjad farewell. He comes to the tent of the women and calls out, Ya Zainabu, Ya Kulthum, Ya Sakina, Ya Fidda, alaykunna minni salam, fahada salamu wida'in. Peace be upon you. My final farewell, may it be accepted. As he said this, the women surrounded him and they fell upon his feet. As they fell upon his feet, the heavens filled with their cries. He saw them and he raised his hand and he said, O Allah, let them not die in my grief. O Lord, save them. He comforts them one by one. And as he begins to leave, there is a call from behind him, Ya Aba Abdullah, Mahlan, Mahlan, Ya Aba Abdullah. O Aba Abdullah, pause for a moment. Hussein turns back. Zainab comes walking to him, crying. She falls at his feet. O Aba Abdullah, let me behold your face for one last time. When again shall I see you? As she cries, Hussein says, O sister, do not tear the arteries of my heart. She says, O Aba Abdullah, at whose mercy do you leave me? I have no grandfather, no father, no brother. O Hussein, who do I have after you? He embraces her and says, O Zainab, bear it with patience. Your grief shall know no end after I have gone. She looks into the eyes of Abdullah and says, O son of my mother, take good tidings that your sister shall bear this grief in a way that patience shall salute her. O Aba Abdullah, lower your head for a moment. As he lowers his head, she kisses his neck. He says, Oh sister, what is this that you do? It was the request of our mother. She said, when my child comes for the final farewell, kiss his thirsty neck from me, for soon it shall be cut with a blunt dagger. Hussein says, Oh sister, raise your hands. She raises her hands and he begins to kiss her wrists. Oh brother, what is this that you do? The wrists of a princess that shall be tied like the captives of Rome after me. Oh sister, look after the daughters of the Prophet and my orphans. Bear it with patience. Allah shall give you grand reward. Your tribulations will know no end. He emerges from the tent, ascends his steed. فَوَاللَّهِ يَمِينًا وَيَسَارًا. He looks to the right, he looks to the left, and calls out, Ya Fursan al-Hijab, Ya Fursan al-Hijab, مَا لِيَدْعُوكُمْ فَلَا تُجِيبُونَ وَاسْتَغِيثُ بِكُمْ فَلَا تُغِيثُونَ. O my brave warriors, what has become? I call unto you, but you respond not. I plead for your help, you come not to me. By Allah, death has deprived them of a tongue. If Allah were to restore their souls into their body, with their decapitated bodies, they would run to me once again. Alas, they have been separated from me. He looks on and he says, Hal min yasirin yansuruna, Hal min mughithin yughithuna, Hal min dabin yadubbu an harami Rasulillah. Is there anyone who may come to my aid? Is there anyone who may defend the harim of Rasulullah? There is silence in the wilderness. Hussein finds no response. He spurs his steed. Zuljana refuses to move. He says, O steed, you are as tired as your master. I ask you to take me to my final battle, and then you shall be free of my burden. As he says this to Zuljana, Zuljana lowers his head, and tears flow from its eyes and descend upon its hooves. As the tears descend, a broken voice ascends. O Father, I too have a last request. What is it, O Sakina? O Father, descend your horse and sit next to me. Hussein sits next to Sakina. Yes, O child. O Father, take me into your lap. Hussein takes Sakina into his lap. O Father, caress my head as you would caress the head of an orphan. Hussein caresses the head of Sakina. O child, go inside and let me be. Ab ya abati, astaslamta lil maut? O Father, have you submitted to death? O Sakina, what may I do? I have no one left. She says, O Father, if you are going to die, then take your Sakina to Medina before you die. When he hears of Medina, he no longer controls himself and says, Wa Sakina, where shall you find Medina after me? It shall be the ruins of Sham in eternity. The child does not let the father go. He says, O Sakina, I may bring back some water for you. When she hears about water, the child trembles. She says, O Father, I no longer want any water. My uncle promised water and did not come back. I fear you too shall go and not return. He calls out to the women, take my child and be good to her. He ascends his steed, goes and engages with the enemy. He says, O godless people, have you no fear of God? You have torn apart the limbs of the Prophet of Allah. Is there any other than me who is the son of Fatima between the east and the west? The Maqtal records, Zainab's heart is filled with anxiety. He comes to the tent and cries out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliyyil azim. When Zainab hears this, she finds comfort in her heart. He goes again. This time he enters the Euphrates. The thirst of Sakina impels Hussein towards the water. The Maqtal records, 2 arrows were released. One penetrates his neck and the other his forehead. As he begins to cup the water, it is said to him, O Hussein, you drink of the water while your tents are being looted. Like a raging lion, he reascends his steed and says, O people, if you have no religion, if you have no accountability, then be free man in this world of yours. O Shimmer, kill me first before you loot my tents. Shimar says, kill him first and then loot his tents. They face Hussein. Hussein fights them again, makes his way till the tents and calls out, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This time when Hussein is about to enter the battlefield, the archers are given orders that as soon as Hussein arrives, release your arrows from your bows, and Hussein, let him be your target. As Hussein arrives within the battlefield, the arrows are released from their bows and they penetrate into the body of Al-Hussein. Hussein is unable to contain himself upon the saddle as he begins to descend upon the plains of Karbala. In Ziyaratun Nahiya, the 12th Imam salutes him. Peace be upon my grandfather, who on the Asr of Ashura was neither upon the back of his steed nor upon the plains of Karbala, but hung between the two upon a bed of arrows. Hussein removes the arrows, takes hold of his blade, and begins to fight. As he fights, he pleads to Allah, Allahumma wafawtu bi'ahdi, awfi bi'ahdik. O Lord, I have fulfilled my promise. You too fulfill your promise. There is no response. Hussein is falling and standing. He is surrounded by the enemies who are throwing stones upon him, striking him with their swords. Hussein calls out, Allahumma wafawtu bi'ahdi, awfi bi'ahdik. There is no response. Hussein is seen standing. He stands, and an enemy rides up to him, strikes him upon his blessed head. The sword penetrates his helmet and into his head. Hussein falls to the ground, and as he trembles, he takes the hem of his garment and wipes the blood from his face. Another one comes and embeds a spear into the hollow of his neck. As he removes it, Hussein stretches out his trembling hand to get his blade, and there is a call from the heavens. Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. O soul, come back to your God. Hussein drops his blade. There is a call, await not. Behead the man and finish him off. As they begin to circle Hussein, Zuljana frantically runs around Hussein to save him from the blows. When Zuljana finds that he can no longer save his master, he places his neck and the mane of his neck upon the wound of Al-Hussein. So his mane begins to drip of the blood of Hussein and then gallops off in the direction of the tents. As the enemies circle in on Al-Hussein, Hussein is in his sajda, praying to Allah, Allahumma anta muta'aliyul makan, azimul jabarut, husnul bala. Allahumma anta thiqati fi kulli hali, wa la ma'buda siwak. O Lord, you are the one I trust in all affairs, and there is no one worthy of worship other than you. When the enemies hesitate to kill Hussein, Shimar arrives, grabs Hussein by the hair and flings him upon his back. As Hussein trembles upon the burning plains of Karbala, a shadow falls upon Hussein. And he said, who is this? And we hear a broken voice calls out, it is I, your mother Fatima. As Fatima comes to Hussein, Shimar arrives on the chest of Hussein. As he places his knee on the chest of Hussein and extracts his dagger, Fatima looks towards the Prophet because all the arwah were there. She says, oh Father, Hussein is being slaughtered. Muhammad turns away his face. Oh Ali, your child is being killed. Ali is filled with tears, turns his face away. Oh Hassan, shall you not save your Hussein? All the Anbiya and Awsiya begin to leave Karbala. Hussein is in the lap of his mother. When the knife arrives upon the throat of Hussein, and as it takes its course, and as the drops of blood appear, Fatima's arms begin to tremble. Oh mother, shall you leave me? I am but a mother, O child. How may I witness such a scene? Oh mother, in whose hands do you leave me? Look towards the hill, O child. As Hussein looks towards the hill, he finds his sister Zainab. We are told that when the women of Arabs encountered afflictions and stress that had no end, in distress they would put their hands upon their heads and scream out. Zainab places her hands upon her head and cries out, Ya layta as-sama atbaqna ala al-ard. If only the heavens would fall upon the earth. Ya layta al-jibal yatadakdakna. If only the mountains would crumble. Ama fikum min muslimin. Is there no Muslim amongst you who will save my Aba Abdullah? Hussein looks towards Zainab and tells her, Oh Zainab, retreat and go back to the tent. Zainab is retreating, looking back towards the Maqtal, calling out, Oh Aba Abdullah, call on to me, so that I may know you are still alive. As she returns, Karbala begins to tremble. There is a violent wind, and there is a cry from the heavens. Ala qad qutila al-Husayn bi Karbala. Ala qad dubiha al-Husayn bi Karbala. Zainab enters into the tent of Sajjad. Sajjad, take news of your father. Sajjad comes to the door of the tent and sees the head of Hussein being raised on the end of a spear and calls out, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Matin Hussein.